Hi guys, just wanted to come back real quick and show you just the finishing touches that I did for the cover of this journal. If you watched the other video when I made the journal and did the cover, I said that I was leaving these long tails here so that I could put some dangles. So I just had these wooden beads that I've had for a really long time. I used those and then I just put a laundry pin on the end, so that dangles down that edge, and then on the bottom down here, just 3 beads. In frame, just those 3 beads. And then for the closure, just to hold it shut, because if you remember from the other video, it wasn't staying real tightly closed. So I just took some jute, I ran it underneath one of these binding stitches, and just did a square knot. So now I can just wind it up and wrap it around that button and it will stay closed. So I just wanted to show you that because I did mention both of those things, but I didn't have them done by the time I got to the end of the video the other day. So that was that. I'm going to start altering a cigar box. I think I might do a Halloween theme. So I'm going to bring you along for that, and should be fun. Okay, let's get started on that. Okay, I cleaned the outside and the inside with Crud Cutter. I do that whenever I'm going to upcycle something that I've thrifted or that's been around for a while, just to get the dirt and fingerprints and grease and whatever off of it, so I know my paint won't lift. So it's clean, and I am going to just start on the inside. And I'm going to give it a coat of black gesso, if I can get it open. And I might need to go over this white label with a couple of coats just to get the coverage I'm looking for. We'll see when it dries what it needs. Other than a focal image for the top of this, I really don't know what I'm going to do with it. Shocked, I know, aren't you? We'll figure it out as we go along. It'll be cool. It'll be fun. Just want to get that label covered. I'm being careful, and I don't know why, because I don't know what I'm going to do in here, but I'm trying, not being real successful, but I'm trying not to get too much gesso up the sides, even though I guess it doesn't matter because I don't intend to leave them as they are. If anything, I'd cover them with paper or something. So it's late, you guys. I just can't sleep, so I thought, well, I better show you the front of that journal before I forget. And then I thought, well, while I'm here, I guess I'll do this. I should have sealed this with wood sealer because it's going to suck this gesso up. I got paper in there now. That will just speed this part up. Okay. It's all painted and dry on the inside, and I did get a lot of streaking on the inside of the lid, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to overcoat it. The outside, I'm not sure. I know that I have this picture that I'm going to use as the focal point. It was the front of a birthday card that I got years ago, and I loved it so much I've just kept it, and it's just been in my stash, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to use that on this box. So I just took it off the card and used my paper distresser just to distress the edges. So that'll come later. I have this little piece that I thought I might put on there too. And then another one of my Tuesday morning finds was this stamp set I got for $2.99, and it's just all Halloween stuff, so that'll come in handy. And then I found this, whatever this stuff is, trim ribbon. I've had this forever too, but I might use some of that, I don't know, but I just pulled it out because I saw it. So I'm going to leave this open, and I think I'm just going to let it dry overnight, and we'll come back to it in the morning and keep going on it. Maybe I'll have some thoughts in my sleep as to what I want to do next. So, oh, I know what else I have. Something else that I've had for years and years and years and years and years is this black mica. So I think I might put this on there somewhere too. So just as I'm thinking of things that I might want to use, so I don't forget, which, you know, I'm old, I forget everything, but I pull them out and put them on my workbench so that when I get to a certain point, I will remember that that's an option. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, everything is dry, and as you see, this part where I painted over the label is pretty smeary, but I am going to put this paper in the top here. This, if you saw my Fast Fun Friday where I did the sandpaper and stencil with the magazine pages, that's where these papers came from. So I'm just going to use matte medium and glue that in the lid and just cover this up. Okay, then I'll just take some black acrylic paint around the edge there and blend that in. I could use a Stabilo, but that will reactivate, and I'm too early in the process to worry about that. So I'm just going to take my brush that had the matte medium in it, mix whatever matte medium was still in there, and I'm just going to roughly apply paint along the edges. Cover up those white areas that are showing. So shiny, I'm going to sand it, so I am going to go off camera and just scuff this up lightly to make sure that I get good adhesion, and then I'll be back. Okay, I am going to start just by covering this top with book pages, and the reason that I like using book pages, well, there's several reasons. One, I like it when the text kind of shows through. I don't know what I'm going to do on top of this, so I'm going to start here. If it shows through, great. If it doesn't, it's a good base for gluing other things too. This, I did sand it. You can tell that it's less shiny. I sanded it, I wiped it down with a paper towel, and then wiped it down with a baby wipe and dried it with my heat tool. So it's nice and dry, but it's still really smooth. So this will give more tooth for paint or glue or whatever I'm going to end up doing on top of it. As far as for covering boxes, pages with just text are perfect because you can use the text itself to line up where you want to fold the papers. So I start out on the end and I just lined this up. This is the open edge right here. I just lined that up, just leaving just a little bit of a gap there at the closed part of the box, and then creased it there. I creased this over in so I could miter this corner back right here, right there, and then I used this edge of the text, and that took me, fortunately in this case, it took me right almost to the edge of there. So that's one piece. Now obviously the page wasn't long enough, so I just took another, I started with a whole piece and did the same thing on this end. They don't have to match exactly. You just want a little bit of an overlap, so I just marked both pages where I wanted an overlap. I tore this one against a ruler. I got a little hoogie there. And then my pencil mark right here, just so I don't have that big of an overlap. And I just like to line it up with the ruler, and I can tear it against the edge of the ruler. Now the only thing I would caution you, if you have really old book pages that are brittle, be careful using those because they're going to crack when you fold them over the edge of the box. So maybe go for a book that's not quite as old. And then line that back up, that back on there. This one needs to come up just a hair this way, if I can. Let me see if I can't do it against the ruler here. Get something to go by, because it's going to just always want to fold on that same edge. There, that's better right there. How are we looking back here? It's the same book, so it should be good. Just kind of want them to line up, because if I knew for sure what I was doing in terms of what I was going to go on top of this with, it wouldn't make that much difference, but since I'm not sure, that's better. Alright, I'm going to go with that. So I'm going to get 2 more pieces for here, get them folded, I'm going to glue them down, and I'll be back. I'm just going to use matte medium to glue them down. to decide, do I want to cover these sides with the same book text or something else? A couple of things that you may or may not have noticed since I sped it up. I ended up with a very thin line right there and right here where my folds were off, or else I put it on crooked, whatever. I just tore little strips of the same book text and just pieced them in, because this is all getting covered up one way or another, paint or something, so it's not critical. I just tore around this front closure. There's a little bit of paint still showing there, but that's okay. And then the other thing, just keep in mind, you're going to get a lot of matte medium on your fingertips as you're doing this and smoothing things out and positioning. If your book text is fairly old or fairly thin, when it's wet, it's going to stick to your fingers and you may lift off pieces and end up with holes, so just be aware of that. Either wipe your fingers off or just be careful that that doesn't happen. Alright, I am going to let this dry a little bit more on its own while I figure out what I want to do on the bottom part of the box, and I'll be back. Okay, that took forever, but my box is all covered on all the sides and the bottom with book text. And then we have this piece inside. I need to put some color on here, I think, even if it's just around the edges, and then I can take it down onto the sides, and I have to do something to cover up around here too, and I'm not sure, maybe just paint. So I'm going to figure that out, and I'll get that on and then I'll be back. Okay, this is what I came up with. I used 5 different colors of Distress ink, and I started on the back because it was an experiment, but it took about 3 layers of putting the ink on to build up the color depth that I wanted, and then I splattered it with water. I sprayed it with the fine mist and then made big splatters, puddles, partially dried it, then dabbed up the excess in the big puddles, and then finished drying it. Can you see that? So I think it looks like old paper still, but yet it has color on it. So, are we back in focus? I think so. So that's what I did. I first used spiced marmalade, mostly around the edges, and then I used peeled paint, kind of moving inward, and then in the center I put the wilted violet. That was my first layer, and then I partially dried it, I sprayed it, I dabbed it, and I dried it, and it was too light. So then I went around the outside edges with fired brick and vintage photo just on the very edges, and then fired brick to build up some color. And then I used the wilted violet again and the peeled paint some more, just kind of randomly, and sprayed it. And I let it sit for a minute. I partially dried it, and then I just, right here where the big places are that the ink is lifted, I just laid the paper towel down, but I didn't press into it because I didn't want to lift all the ink. I just wanted to get the excess up so that I could finish drying it, and then I finished drying it. So I like it. I hope it's dry enough that I can. And let me just apologize right here and now for these nasty fingernails. But I have been arting so hard for the last 3 days, and I knew it was fruitless to do my nails because I would just wreck them again. So I have company coming on Thursday, and I thought I'm just going to get this box done, then I'll do my nails. So, sorry, my hands are a mess. but you know what else is new, right? So, okay, I'm going to do the sides and the top the same way. And then I'll be back when it's done, because, well, actually, let me show you. We'll just do a side together. I hope that's in focus. I think it is. All right, so the side's probably going to be a little bit different because I don't have as much space. But this is how I started the bottom. I just went around. This is spiced marmalade. Just went around the very edge, a little heavier in the corners, just like that. And then I used peeled paint and just came inside of that. And these, you can overlap them. They don't get too muddy because they really kind of don't intermix. They kind of layer on top of each other pretty nice. Because normally if I was mixing orange and olive green paint, I would be getting brown right now. Okay. And then the wilted violet. And this seems stronger than the other two colors. I kind of went a little, not quite as heavily with the wilted violet, but just to get some of that purple in the middle. And then I went around just the very edges with the vintage photo, just to kind of give them some darkness and make them look a little more aged and not so bright. And that does seem to mix in more with the orange color, which is fine. I got it on my other hand. And then I partially dried it. Not a lot, just a little bit. And it's probably not necessary, but that's what I did on the back, so I'm going to just do the same thing so it looks the same. And then I have a fine mist sprayer. I just stood way back and sprayed it. And actually, I might just leave that like that, because I don't have as much room. Maybe I can just do one or two big, we'll go this way and there. Now if you can see that water moving right there, there's more water there, but I'm just going to dry it and leave it like that. I think it matches pretty good the bottom. So the side didn't really need another layer of color. Actually, you know what though? I am going to take the fired brick and just deepen the edges just a tad. Yep, it needed that, I think. And that's what I did on the bottom, so I just did an extra layer of color on the bottom. But I think that side matches fine, so I'm going to keep going. Okay, it's all done. Here's the front, or the top and the front. And it actually I'll decide later, but the ink really did kind of do a nice job of covering up that wood where I cut that, badly cut that paper.